hey, Claire, when you hear salary negotiations, how does it make you feel?
Well, it used to make me feel the way everybody is saying right now, and I'll add vomit to it as well. There's a physical reaction to it. I have this weird thing. I shouldn't say weird, but I love taking something that most of us feel really resistant to and finding a way to not just get through it, but actually be empowered by doing it. So I am here to say that salary negotiation, I think, is an opportunity to look really, really good and to feel really good. So we'll talk about how to kind of flip that mindset, but I want to validate how everybody's feeling because there's a lot that's at stake here, right? Like you could feel personally, I mean, we take it personally if we're rejected, right? Especially if you pride yourself on what you do. And so many of us feel like our net worth equals our self-worth. There's a lot on the line. It's vulnerable to ask for more. Also, there's unfair pay practices. There's no transparency in a lot of places. So it's a black box that you're walking into. So of course you're going to have all of these emotions, especially if you're a woman, because we're socialized to be accommodating largely, right? And so by asking for more, does that now make us look greedy? So we've got this extra layer to contend with. So for everybody writing these things in the chat, it's not in your head. It's a very real thing, but I don't think it has to be this way.
Ooh, that sounds like you're teasing some good tips you're going to share later, Claire. So I'm hopeful.
Buying myself time with more coffee.
More coffee. All right. Thank you. Lisa, how does it make you feel? Salary negotiations.
Absolutely scared, anxious. Don't want to even think about it. Why it's in my mind. Go away, thoughts. Yeah, it's valid, as Claire said, but it's also somewhat, empowering because something is not right and you want to try to figure it out, but you don't know how to. So yeah, validating everything that they're saying, scared and anxious. Absolutely.
I love that.
Not anymore.
No, until the end of today.
Yeah.
Until the end of today. So we're gonna straighten all of that. In fact, so just at a high level here today, again, we're so glad that you're here and hope you stick around because we are going to talk today about some real world tips that you personally can use to help close the wage gap through salary negotiations. So yes, it is certainly about us and how we feel, meaning as humans beings walking into that, but it is also an opportunity for us to be able to help others. So get ready for that. Whether you're looking for a job, you're ready to negotiate a raise because you're now doing the job of 3 people, or you're actually looking to hire somebody right now, you're going to get some real world tips from today. So definitely stick around for that. All right. And we've got one more question for you. So great. Salary negotiation makes you feel anxious, stressed, angry, all of those things. Obviously, you've had some thoughts about it, but have you ever struggled to get paid what you're worth? So maybe you're scared and you go in. Has anyone had trouble getting paid what you're worth? Whether it's stepping into that conversation or that conversation not going as you'd hoped. Who's struggled? This is an easy one. This is just a yes or a no, or you could say me if you want to.
And I'll jump in for a quick second. That's why I started Ladies Get Paid, because a friend of mine said to me she realized she was not charging as much as her male counterparts. And she was a very talented freelance art director. And so for her, it was A, she didn't know how much to charge. But B, and this is the part I found most interesting, she didn't feel comfortable charging more. So there's a kind of like a logistical issue, right? Of like the information, but then it's also, how do you feel about the information? This is why this is a fascinating topic.
Definitely. And just so you know, in the chat, we have a very long list of yes and a bunch of 100%. So we got a lot of that. Also, we have some absolutely yes, but blamed myself for not negotiating what I was worth. That is fair. So local Pennsylvania jobs never pay enough, but remote New Jersey and California jobs do pay enough. Why is that? I don't know that we can answer that question, but totally agree. That's a struggle depending on where you are, figuring out what you're worth. All of these things are definitely reasonable reasons when you would have struggled. So let's step into some tips. Claire, not to put you on the spot, but I do know you've put a little thought into salary negotiation. In fact, I want to shout and also say I have taken a salary negotiation class with our Women of Inside Out session here. Personally been in your class and it's really good. We'll talk about the course you have later, but lay some knowledge on us. We're ready.
Okay, great. So Also put me on the spot. That's why I'm here. Okay. So here's, to me, the best way to flip the mindset from, oh gosh, I'm so hesitant to ask, and having all of those, am I going to look greedy feelings, to being empowered, is don't imagine yourself like an employee anymore. Think of yourself like a business. Okay. You are the LLC of me, and you are pitching an investor. Okay. So the case that you're making to them, it's not about a reward, charity, favor, even fairness. It's investment, right? It's effectively making the case to them about why your growth equals their growth. And it's true. If you are currently employed right now, there is a margin on your paycheck, right? Otherwise, you don't work there anymore. You're let go. Therefore, you really need to make the entire positioning about how you move the business bottom line for them, which I know we're going to get into more specifics, because depending on what you do, especially if it's a more kind of creative field, that can be a little bit trickier to make that case. But let's just get rid of the like fairness or hard work or reward, any of that. It's really about how investing in you, right? Getting a raise for you actually equals more money for them. So I know that there's, again, more tangible stuff we're going to get into, but like, hopefully that little flip of a switch is going to feel more empowering than maybe you were feeling walking into this.
Totally agree with that. So yeah. Do you have that button? Is that for sale on ladiesgetpaid.com, the flip the switch button? Boop. LLC of me.
Yeah. Are being printed in the back with my babies.
That's wonderful. No, but I love that perspective, though. Really, you are an investment. That is why you're there. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So something we talked about, or started talking about a little bit in our prep for this conversation, really was, so great. If you want someone to invest in you, let's say it is the LLC of me, you need data to support why you are worth what you say you're worth, and why there is value in the organization in investing in you.
Yeah.
How do you get some of that information?
Yes. Okay. So first we need to just think about, how does one quantify business impact? And that's really money made and money saved. And chances are, and I'm generalizing here, but if you have a role where it's a little bit hard to define about your quantified impact, you're probably saving the company money. So time, processes, even mentoring other people, helping your team be more productive. It's really a story you tell. And if this is ever unclear to you, I think the next step for yourself is to think about, where can I go get this information? Who can I talk to? And it's also filtering it through, what does my company value? What are their goals, their priorities? Where are they investing in? And so that might mean a larger conversation with your manager about doing the kind of work that's aligned with the business goals and priorities. That's why in my salary negotiation video course, it's not just about negotiating on the day of the negotiation, but really working backwards from dialogues with your manager or with other teams even, about, how do I fit into the company's ecosystem? We shouldn't be guessing this stuff or like Googling it. Should straight up ask it. And it's not, I'm asking because I want to get paid more, unless you feel comfortable saying that, but it's asking it because I want to make sure that I'm moving the needle here. I want to do good work. I want to be a leader. And then you go and get compensated more for it.
Yes, I love that. And I love that a lot of what you're saying really is about perspective, our perspective of ourselves, of the situation, the perspective of the person that you're talking to and how they feel about your work. So being able to think differently is really, really powerful.
And I'll give just a quick example. I was teaching this, actually, it was at Vice a while ago, and a woman in the audience raised her hand. She said, I'm, a videographer. I don't know how I move the business needle. I mean, I can quantify my impact in terms of like views on my video, but beyond that, what do I do? And there was another woman in the audience who then raised her hand and she said, well, I do sales here. So obviously easier for her to quantify her impact. But she said, I can tell you about the people that I'm pitching. I show videos. We didn't know yet if she'd shown any of this other woman's videos. But what we realized in that dialogue was that other departments needed to be talking to each other so that they could get a better understanding about how their work then had a domino impact on other teams. So really think of yourself as like a detective here in putting together the pieces. And then from there, it's telling the story.
I love that. That's awesome. And also, we have a cool question that came from the chat. Oh, the chat. So how does salary negotiation work when applying for a job as opposed to when you're in a job and asking for a raise? How's that different?
Yeah, it's largely the same thing, although of course you're not, able to get as much data from this current company or this company you're applying to. You need to tell the story from the past, right? So it's literally the same story, but you just got to go back, to the folks that you worked with at your old company and try to get that data if you haven't already, which should really underscore to everybody, wherever you're currently employed, track this stuff. Have these dialogues now. You want to effectively be building your case before you need to use your case, whether it's at a current company or a future one.
Yeah. And Lisa, I think you may have a perspective or two on this, having helped, hundreds or whatever of people in 17 years. I don't even know if you have a count of how many people you've helped find a job.
You should, because you use that to get your raise. That's the tracking. Yeah.
Totally. Yes. What are your thoughts on that, Lisa?
No, absolutely. Definitely track, what you're doing at your company. So when you leave, you have some ammunition for your next negotiation. And, you don't think about that because looking for a job, you're thinking, oh, I just want to show that I could do what I did. But having that data, having that, information, it's key. And it's very important now. With some, companies are very transparent up front, but most aren't. So you're able to kind of step in with that. It helps.
Yes, I totally agree. And shameless plug, does Aquent do anything to help people get data on what salaries should be as they're looking for a job?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Salary guide. That's right. The Aquent salary guide. Katie, if you could put that into the link as well. And I know, Claire, you have some thoughts on this as well regarding where to get the actual numbers. So to your point, go talk to other people and have those open conversations. I hear you saying that as well. And Lisa, I totally agree. Like it can come from what you've done before. But salary guide is one way. What are other ways to get the information, Claire?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one way that's not going to be great for you is if you just go in there and tell them it's Glassdoor, which is nothing against Glassdoor, but chances are HR will respond to you and say that's not relevant. And then your case is over. So what you really want to do is to talk to real people. And by people, I mean white men or the people who make the most money, who work at competitor companies. And so we're really getting data that's current. Okay. So we're not basing our salary off of what we used to make because you may have been underpaid / you grew from then and the market changed. So want to be clear about that. You don't have to know these guys. In fact, better for networking, do your research on LinkedIn, find people in comparable roles who are similar to you because context matters. And tell them that you are doing research. And the more we share our information with each other, the more we'll all get paid. Also, it's a great way to be an ally. A lot of these people, a lot of these guys, they're looking for ways to help and they don't know how. This is perfect. Yeah. And you also don't have to say straight up, what exactly do you make? You could present to them the research that you did and you want to know, are you off base, right? Or ask for a ballpark. What do you have to lose? Really? I mean, I think you have information to gain and somebody to advocate for you. But it's it's competitor companies that you want to be talking to for your most accurate data.
Love that. And as you can see here, we got another question in the chat. When colleagues are getting paid more, even if you have the same job description and day-to-day task, how do you use that in negotiation, or do you?
I think that's tricky. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in. I mean, I think it's very personal. I think calling out a specific person might not be the best move. So you could say, it's come to my attention. But here's the thing. There are reasons that some people are paid more that are, quote, fair. And I'll tell you why very quickly. Oftentimes, a person will be paid more because they were poached from a competitor company. And the way to incentivize them to join was by paying them more. Or they brought with them clients, right? Or vendors, or we don't. So you really got to make sure before you, it's not to say you don't use it, but do you have all the information? And when you present it, are you presenting it in a way that's not going to make the other side defensive, right? Or have a yes or no, but rather the starting point for better understanding compensation philosophy and your path to growth. It's really asking just why, open-ended questions, and knowing that it doesn't have to be solved in that first conversation. In fact, it probably shouldn't be because it will be an answer you don't like.
Yeah.
But Lisa, I don't know. What do you, it's a controversial.
Yeah. As a hiring manager, I would say, you have to be careful. Yes, you don't know the past circumstance, but, I would say, comparing what that person is doing, if you're doing the same thing, you have the same history, presenting what your capabilities are, what you're doing, mirror exactly what that person is doing, saying, this is what I am doing. This is you know, so I would say using what you're doing, if you know it's exactly the same thing, using your experience, keep presenting yourself, not the other person, because there's a lot of loopholes there for that, for that to not work in your favor by using someone else's example. So I would say, you know, present what you're doing, what you have done, what you're going to do, what have shown results, as that negotiation.
Yes. And it can also be one of many data points. So as opposed to having that one moment where you're like, I know Bob's getting paid more than I'm getting paid.
Right.
Instead of that, to be able to say, hey, I've done some research externally and I found this. It's also come to my attention that here salary ranges are actually higher than I had thought, for exactly the same skills. So can you help me understand? To Claire's point, like asking to understand as opposed to accusing might get you a better answer. So we have a lot of questions popping up here in the comments, which is awesome. Here's one right here on the screen. Thank you so much, Jess. Is there a good way to negotiate salary adjustment when your workload is significantly increased after starting a role? So you started and it's one salary and now, you know, it's a bigger job than they said.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. If your role has increased by, or your responsibilities have increased by about 20% or more, that should jump you a pay band. So by the way, a great idea for tracking this stuff for anybody at any stage is go back to the original job description when you first were hired and then write up a new one based on what you're currently doing and see where the scope changed. You're going to find really good evidence here to make your case, whether it's a 20% increase or not. I think it's bringing that to them and just asking them, have I jumped a pay band? And if not, why? And how does one, like, I just want to make sure that I'm, you know, on par with growth here, but make it about you wanting to do well at the company, and that you're, you know, loyal and you're, you know, it's not accusatory. Again, it's that starting point for trying to better understand their compensation philosophy. But absolutely, if it's 20% increase, go in and ask for more with evidence of how you've impacted the bottom line always.
That's
yeah,
great.
I 100% agree with that too. We at Aquent, we're always in that situation where we are making a case for our talent, because on contract roles, things change and things are very fluid with the client. And we have to do that. And it works because client they do value the fact that, you know, our talent is taking the time to, you know, adjust to the change. Not saying this is not the job I was hired for, I'm out. They want the opportunity, they want to do better. And making sure you're rewriting what you actually was hired for and the difference in what you've done. You know, percentage, I didn't realize it's 20%. That's great to know. But I think that's exactly what we tend to do here at Aquent a lot.
Yeah, I love that. And so to your point, tapping into however you got into the organization, if it's an external recruiter, if it's the original internal recruiter, if it's like however that first conversation was, can help you find some leverage and show the difference between what is. But love that. Another question right here in the chat. Thank you, Laverne. What if your position is very niche and you cannot find accurate data? Bum, bum, bum. Then we want to meet you. I'm just kidding. That was funny, right?
I think
it is hard.
I don't know. I could jump in here. I think this is an opportunity for, you know, the HR department, compliance department, whoever develops, you know, their internal descriptions and pay grades to build on something that's niche, you know, do some outside research, be the start to make a change. And having those conversations with your direct manager that could take that to upper leaders if need be, to make that internal change. Because yes, there's a lot of niche positions out there.
Yeah.
But that's a great opportunity for the organization, I think, to identify we are creating an opportunity here that could become, you know, something good for the company. And, you know, so bringing that to the attention, I think is a good thing. It's an opportunity. I look at it as an opportunity for the company.
Also, if it's niche, then you're probably niche, meaning there's not a lot of competition for the role and you're really valuable. Like, who else is going to do this if not you? So I actually think you have an extremely strong case. Again, always bringing it back to the business impact.
Yeah.
I love that. Yes, 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 yes. And hey, Lee, I just want to acknowledge you using PARS, stars, or CARS, 3 ways to be able to articulate your value, the problem, action, results.
Yeah.
I can't remember how all those acronyms work out, but thank you, Lee, for putting that in. But really thinking through the value that you're adding and positioning it in a way that your hiring manager or company can understand that there is a problem. That's why they hired you, and look at your results. There's a lot of ways to put those things together. Thank you. All right. And thanks for the question too. So there's a couple of questions here too about sort of when and how to bring up salary during the hiring process. So I'm just going to merge a couple of questions today to say, when is the right time when you are actively looking for a job to have had or be the one to have the salary conversation?
I can jump in. I'll say something a little controversial or a little contradictory to Ladies Get Paid, but if it's an online application and they're making you put what you want, I would put the low end of the range that you found online. Your goal here is just to get in the door. Okay. They're not, by the time that it's the actual negotiation, they're not going to pull up your online application and say, you said the low end of the range. By the way, I want to be clear. You're not saying anything below the research that you did. You want to get in the door. Okay. Similarly, if you're being asked upfront, what is it that you're looking for? Just state the range that you found, right? This is the research I saw, but hey, listen, I want to learn more from you about what it is that you're paying or the scope of the role or your compensation philosophy. You're not saying the number. However, totally different advice when it's the actual negotiation. You have the offer, okay? The reason I would love for us to say what we want and say the highest number in the range that we found in our research is because you are commanding the conversation. You've shown that you're a top performer. So you're asking for top dollar, and it's going to become easier. I mean, there's literal research called anchoring that says that the negotiation will go more in your favor if you are the first one to say the number, but you're also going to say it in an open-ended way. This is the number ideally I'm looking for, given the research I did, and hopefully I've demonstrated that I'm a top performer, but would love to hear more. I want to work here. I understand this is a negotiation. There needs to be some flexibility. Let's talk. And so for all my freelancers out there or people who work for themselves, I'll give a little tip that now I probably shouldn't say because now everyone will know that I do this. I say a really high number and tell them I'm negotiable because I'm assuming I'm not going to ever get that high number, but it's still way higher than I've ever been paid before. So it does two things. It anchors high, so I command my worth, which actually makes me look good. Right? But B, it also shows that I am empathetic to budgetary constraints and that, I'm, collaborative here. This is a great way to both be assertive, but not look greedy.
Yeah. I love that. Negotiation 101, like put negotiation into your salary negotiation. So here's a great question that came up to pay transparency is becoming more popular. I like that phrasing. So a lot of states actually now require companies to post ranges. And to what you're saying there, Claire, a lot of times those companies are posting ranges like $0 to $1 million. There, I posted it. Haha. So I'm very curious on your thoughts, both your thoughts on pay transparency, where it helps, where it doesn't, and how to use it to your favor.
Yeah, well, like what, Claire just earlier said, it is important. As a hiring leader, you need to be transparent upfront. You still should negotiate, because it could be not just the salary. It could be bonuses. It could be, certain benefits. There's a lot more in the salary package. So, you still, this is a great question. I would encourage you to continue the negotiation because the package, could be changed. Salaries could be changed. The only constant in life is change. Most companies, Claire, I shouldn't say this, but I'll say it too. Like you said, they have room 9 out of 10 times for the right person with the right experience. They need to make an impact in their business, and they will do that. So continue negotiating because the only constant in life is change, and there's always what, So I like that question. Yeah. So I would say negotiate. So
yes, Claire.
Yeah, and listen. I mean, if it's a big range, the negotiation is you're going for the top of the range. So it's I know that seems unhelpful when you're looking at a huge range, but no, it's still helpful because now you have a top number to go for, which is great. And by the way, if that top number they're posting is still lower than the market value, then you can either decide this is not the right job for you, or maybe it is and you're willing to make the financial sacrifice, or you can have a conversation with them about why this is below market value and what are the other benefits that you can get that make it worth your while. And by the way, it's not, you want to start by asking them what they're offering, but come prepared yourself with those benefits, like, going to a conference or having them hire you a career coach or, Lisa, I think, had mentioned signing bonus. And by the way, if anyone's listening to this going, but Claire, if they don't have more money to give me for my salary, then how would they be able to, pay for me to go to a conference or get an executive coach? Different budgets, different departments. And they may actually be quite grateful that you're having this conversation because they don't want to lose you, right? If you walk away, that's lost money for them because they lost time that they invested in either, the hiring process and, or you've worked there long enough where, it'll be a learning curve for the next person to join. So, again, open-ended, ask them questions, but do come with what you want.
Fabulous advice. So that's one end of the spectrum. We're not going to necessarily stop talking about how to get a job and salary, negotiate your salary when you're trying to get a job. But how about this question? Many companies won't negotiate salary increases until you give a 2-week notice. And then all of a sudden they're willing to counteroffer and like, there's the money, we had it. So what's your advice in those situations, Claire?
Like, bad company culture. This is terrible. Yeah. But again, you have to know your values and your goals and your priorities. And you may decide, you know what, this is good for my resume to have this fancy title, this consulting company on. And I know this is how they operate and it's worth it for X number of time in my life. Right. But that to me would be an absolute red flag. But by the way, if you are interviewing at companies, you should check to see how long people are at those companies, how long it takes for them to move up, and what kind of person's getting promoted. And, see if you can find that out before you're in that situation. But thumbs down for me.
Lisa?
Totally thumbs down. I think that's holding you hostage. It's not a good, culture to be part of. And challenge it. I would say challenge it. If you want to be with the company, you want to, be part of the organization still, challenge it. But I think that's a big red flag. I'm very surprised to see that.
And one way to challenge it would be to say something like, I've noticed that at this company, it seems to be the way to get more money is by getting counteroffers, but that takes time and energy away from our work. Right. Like, and also why would we want to be discussing things with competitor company? Like, I want to stay focused here. And I want to do the best, I can at this company. I don't want to discuss things with other companies. So this, again, when we say challenge or be assertive, there's always a way to do it I think that can make you look quite collaborative. And that would be an example, I think.
Yeah. And making it about the business too, which is great. There are a lot of stats out there about how few people, when you choose to stay after you get a counteroffer, are there 1 year later. Because the reasons that you were planning to leave are probably more than just money. So because you've already made some trade-offs to get there. But that's really great advice for turning it into a win for the company and talking about the business, which is great. All right, cool. Other questions? Ghost jobs, Lee, interesting. So what about, there's a lot of that happening, I believe. What about jobs when it's not really a job? Is there a way to decipher that? Or is there anything in the salary component that might be a red flag to say, not sure this job is real? I was joking about the $0 to $1 million, although there really was a job posted that was very publicly, promoted about $0 to $1 million. But the ranges are really, really big. That seems to be common in any state where pay transparency is a requirement for the employer. But are there any red flags beyond there's no company name, or are there any other red flags to stay away from a ghost job?
I don't know about the ghost job, so maybe Lisa could speak to that, but I would say other red flags would be if in the job description, it's everything in the kitchen sink. Like and I know a lot of nonprofits have that because I've worked with some clients, I've coached with clients where they're bringing me this job description and we're like, are you doing the job of 5 people? And I come from the nonprofit world. So like, I get that we're trying to like stretch budgets here, but that's really rough. That for sure. And also for me, personal pet peeve is just anything about the company being a family, that kind of language. I know it's well-intentioned, but I think we really need to protect ourselves, our identity from our work, and not have this guilt trip that can come in with a quote family dynamic. It's not personal, it's business. So that would be the 2 things for me.
That's great.
Yeah, ghost jobs. I would say if it's a company that you're really interested in, do some investigation. Find someone you could email, connect with, share the job before you apply to it. There's always a way to find someone. I know as a recruiter back in the day, I was like, I have to find someone before I, get to this next step of the process. I would say find out if this job is really real first and question the job. And I think ghost job meanings that the job is not really real, but it's posted, if that's the term, and find out about it first. Before applying and question the posting and where it was and, my strong interest, because if it's a company you're interested in, do some investigation on it before fully applying.
Yeah. So I'm hearing do your research. And so you can't necessarily avoid a ghost job. Sometimes also if recruiters will post jobs for a pipeline, or the recruiter could be a third party that is working on behalf of a client. So there are a lot of variations on how somebody posts, but I do think just doing your due diligence would be smart before you get there.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we have a couple of questions. I'm not sure we have the answer to, but I'm going to throw this out there just in case we do, because it's come up 3 times now in the chat. Are there any tricks to assess pay ranges or market values that are if you're applying in a different country? I mean,
it's the same that you would do here, where you're going to the competitor companies that you're interested in, finding people on LinkedIn who have the roles that are similar to yours or they're similar to you, asking them what their ballpark of what they're being paid, or bringing some research on getting affirmation from them. You could also reach out to recruiters, right? Post in, on LinkedIn, in, industry groups, professional associations, like cast a really wide net and try to be as creative as possible, because you're going to feel a lot more confident going in that you did your due diligence and that it's accurate.
I love
that. Agreed. Reach out to your network, reach out to recruiters, yeah, you definitely will get, and we have definitely salary guides in different countries, depending on the country, but yeah, reach out to your network.
You might also, and I'm not a specialist in this, so I don't know if either of you have thoughts on it, but if you have a visa, if you're somebody who's going to be negotiating also a visa, that may have an impact on how much you're paid. It shouldn't, but I do get those kinds of questions from our community fairly often of they're getting paid less because the company had to pay for the visa or a lawyer, or they're using it they're using it as leverage to pay them less, which is very unfair. I'm not quite sure how to navigate that, or I've never felt quite confident in my own response to that. So I do want to acknowledge it for the person who asked that question, because that may be a factor that they are up against when they're doing research, or at least in the negotiation part.
Yes. I totally agree. So something I know we talked about in our prep that has now come up in the chat as well is the power of sponsors in this process. So I know we've talked about tapping into your network, talking to others in your company and outside your company to get data, which is awesome. But what is a sponsor, Claire, and what are your thoughts on getting one? And Lisa, I know you have a story. So Claire, what's a sponsor?
Sponsor is what I hope Aquent will do for Ladies Get Paid. Just kidding. No, but that would be like, money exchange. But the idea is the same for an individual, which is effectively support. But the way that kind of a sponsor would work in this case would be they can advocate on your behalf, right? So it's a person who has some kind of influence, who's invited into rooms that you don't have access to, but they're going to go to bat for you. They might give you some guidance too, but they're not really a mentor or a coach, or, they're not necessarily working with you on your 5-year plan, but rather, a person who believes in you, who will then, go to bat for you. And we can talk about how to, quote, get them, but I want to be clear, it's not a person who necessarily is spending actually a lot of time with you. They just have to believe in your potential.
I love that. Lisa, has anything like that ever happened to you?
Oh, really? Yeah. Yes. You know, I have a personal story of a sponsor, and I'm so grateful for her. She was a woman. She is a woman. In the mid part of my career, hitting my goals, exceeding my goals, love my job, love my company. I knew something wasn't right. The money wasn't coming in how it's supposed to come in, you know? I was nervous. I was angry. I was scared. All of the things people said in the beginning, like, what do I do? There's this one person that I felt comfortable with. I felt I could trust. And I reached out and I had a conversation. And this is a person, like you said, Claire, it was in rooms that I wasn't in at the time, having conversations that I was not privy to at the time. She listened and she advocated for me to the top. Like she went all the way to the top. And what I would say is finding someone that you could trust, someone that you trust, someone that you feel comfortable having a conversation with. She listened to me and she acknowledged me. She did not promise anything, but she acknowledged what I was saying to her. And that acknowledgement was just enough for me at the time. And I was like, I felt so good. I felt get that nervousness off of my chest. So I really encourage people to find that person that you know you could have a 20-minute conversation with. You never know that person, it might be that one person to help you get to that pay equity that is
I love it.
You deserve.
Yes. And Claire, I know you have some thoughts on how to find that sponsor. So Lisa, I love that story. Claire, what if you don't have a sponsor and you don't have someone in your pocket who you trust, how do you find one?
Yeah. I mean, it could be organic where you are at an event, you know, and you meet somebody, and I can talk about how to maybe follow up with them in a strategic way, but it also could be reaching out cold. I would begin with the organization that you're currently working at if you are employed, and finding somebody whose career path really interests you genuinely, or who has the role that you'd eventually like. And when you message them, do it in a way that's very personal, where you know, it's clear you researched them. Listen, I heard you on this podcast, or I saw you this interview you did, right? Like call out the specific thing that they said. They'll feel recognized, which is, I mean, like Lisa felt recognized as the person who's seeking the sponsor. The sponsor wants to feel recognized too. And demonstrate to them that you respect their time, because that's probably the reason you're going to get a no, is not because they're not interested in helping. The way that they got to where they are, it was through sponsors. It was through networking. They know. However, they're busy. So it's asking a very specific question. I'd love to learn how you fill in the blank. Do you have 15 minutes of time, or by email? And here's a link to, you know, just make it as easy as possible for them to help you, right? And follow up with them if you don't hear back, but stay in touch and do it in a way that is not asking for anything. It's giving. Here's an article that made me think of you. Here's a conference. I think you'd be a great speaker. Can I suggest you? If they post on LinkedIn, repost them. But I want to be clear again to the point of sponsors had sponsors. Okay. The people in my life who are the most responsive to me are shocked. I'm continually shocked by this, are the most influential people. I mean, one of them is now like the ambassador to Canada, right? Like this man does not have time, but he always is good at responding by email. And I genuinely think it's because they understand this is how work works, but you got to do it in a personal way and you have to be consistent with it.
Yeah. I love it. It's all about relationships. So we're at time here. So just to wrap a little, I know, right? Can we stay forever? No, but that's so just to wrap a little bit. I know there was a lot of great information taken from today. We did record today. So for anybody who joined later, wants to listen to this, to hear our voices over and over again, you're going to have that. But in the meantime, just a quick recap for if you are looking for a job or looking to advocate for yourself, know your worth. tie that to the business itself. Go find the data you need to advocate for yourself. And yes, you're going to have to change your perspective a little bit to be able to have those open, wonderful conversations. And also, if you are out there trying to hire somebody, jumping out and you doing your research and putting realistic ranges and not posting ghost jobs and those things is going to boost your employer brand and will help you find wonderful people too. So we're going to put here in the comments for you some access to reach out and connect with Lisa and with Claire. Obviously, Claire, Ladies Get Paid. I can't say it enough. I love your book. You have such a wonderful community, and encourage everyone to take the salary negotiation course. Claire has a lot of incredible information there and also is available to help. So check that out in the comments. Just a last word on this. Anything else that you want to add, Claire and Lisa, to close us out? Lisa, you start.
I would say for hiring managers, start the conversation about pay transparency up front. Start the conversation. Don't wait for that. You start it. Start it.
Yep. Starts. That's a great one. Claire?
Pay it forward. And an easy way to do that is just even from this conversation today, if you learned something that was helpful to you, it's going to be helpful to somebody else. Post it on your LinkedIn. Tag us. We'll comment on it. And it's going to help you have more reach. So it's strategic networking for you, but also you're paying it forward by, passing on the information.
Wow, Claire, when I think of you, I think of the word strategic. So
yes,
thank you for adding that. It really is. Thank you, Bradley.
And I just want to be clear, guys, being strategic, it's not mutually exclusive with being authentic. So we've got to do both of those. Those two things can and should exist together. So appreciate you calling that out.
Yes, of course. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today with us. We really appreciate all of your comments, all your interactions, all your questions. This was really fantastic. Hope you got a lot out of today and all the resources in the chat. So, thank you so much for being here, Lisa and Claire.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Now go